Isn't it funny how 1 minute you're in Monaco and the next minute you're in Buenos Aires? Well, to say that I'm excited is a huge understatement, because not only have I never been to Buenos Aires before, but I've also never been to Argentina, and it's actually my first time in this whole continent. So I've planned a bunch of different things for this vlog. Touristy stuff, not so obvious and touristy stuff. There's gonna be a huge mix, and I think there's gonna be something for everyone, so let's start exploring. I've decided to start my journey in La Boca, which is the birthplace of tango. You can actually hear some tango music behind me. There you go. And this area is full of colorful streets. It's also full of little alleyways where you can see sort of how people used to live before. Obviously it was made a lot more vibrant for tourists, but look, how amazing is this? And it just shows you the rich history that Argentina has and the multicultural history that Buenos Aires in particular has. And tango being a very, very popular sort of social activity over here, it's really interesting to see where it first came from. Okay, let me explain these two little statues here. This right here is from the football team, obviously, because they come from this area, being La Boca as well. And this right here is my favorite ever comic book character. Her name is Mafalda, and she comes from Argentina as well. There's a whole comic book series. They're little strips of funny sort of political and satire comedies written by an Argentine author, and he does sketches of these little personalities as well. And this is partly how I learned Spanish. I read about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 volumes of these comic books, and this little character will always be very special to me. She's taught me a lot. I don't normally do videos from cars, but this is pretty significant because I'm currently on one of the widest roads in the world with about 14 lanes. Have a look at this. No wonder they say this is like the Paris of Latin America. That's certainly what I'm feeling now. It's all very grand, and you sort of feel a bit belittled by the size of everything here. The other area that I was really looking forward to visiting in Buenos Aires is called Palermo, which is where I've come today. Palermo is a beautiful residential area with an immaculate park that basically covers the entire area. On Google Maps, it didn't look as big as it is, so I was expecting like a 10-15 minute visit, but actually it takes more than an hour to walk from one end of Palermo to the other end. And the area has everything from rose gardens to Japanese gardens to a mini forest, a lake, people doing sports, people running with their dogs. So it really is like a nice family feel. I think if I were to live in one place in Buenos Aires, it would definitely be here. I love this little walkway. It's so peaceful to just wander around through it and have this as your background. We were just saying how the GoPro and any camera really does not do this place justice. There's actually so many smells, so many colors, so many sensations that you experience when you come here that I think it's one of those areas that you really have to be here in person. And that's nice to look at, obviously pictures and videos of it, but it's nothing like the real thing. The other really nice thing about this park that I've noticed is that even though these streets are big and wide and you think that cars would be able to pass through here. Well, that's not the case. Everything is pedestrian, which is why people take advantage and they go running, they go rollerblading, they go cycling. Walking through Palermo, I also noticed a lot of fancy residential buildings over there. So in case I do end up living here in Buenos Aires, I will come here and I'll look for my apartment in this area. But the reason I'm taking you guys over here is because you get to see my favorite jacaranda trees. And obviously Buenos Aires at this time of year is full of them. They're all blooming, which is just so lovely to see, because it only happens once a year for 2 weeks in the month of November. So I feel I've come at the perfect time. The only other time I've seen jacarandas bloom this way was in Zimbabwe, and that was about 3 years ago. So this not only reminds me of Zimbabwe, but also just changes scenery for me completely. I find the beautiful thing about this park is that it's not just a garden where people come to sort of see something touristy, where tourists go to take a few pictures and then leave. This is a park that's used as almost a form of lifestyle for the residents of Buenos Aires, and you can really get a feel for local life when you come here. So that's exactly what I've experienced today. Recoleta is known to be a pretty wealthy residential area here, and what interests me the most is actually their shopping mall, which is right behind me. This used to be an auction house for bulls and cows, built in 1867 and only became a mall in around 1988, so still retains some of its original design elements. Even though the Recoleta area is full of designer boutiques, I have come here to look at the famous gomero tree. So this is a rubber tree that was planted over 200 years ago. My exploration of Buenos Aires is starting a little bit further away from the city today. I've come to a local farm about 2.5 hours away from the center of Buenos Aires, and the reason that I think it's important to understand local farming is because of the huge impact and the huge importance that it had when Argentina started trading with the rest of the world, and they would export beef, and more recently they've been exporting maize, wheat and soy as well, amongst other things. Now Argentina as a country has a huge amount of natural resources in the soil that the locals have learned to take advantage of in the best possible way, and I'm here to find out what it means to be a farmer in Argentina. Alright, so the person showing me around this farm today is Julio, who's been renting out the farm for how many years now?
2 years now.
2 years now, and you told me this place was about 2,500 acres. Am I right in thinking that?
2,200 hectares, which is about 4,500 acres.
Oh, so it's twice as big as I thought it was. It is 4,500 acres, which makes your job really hard because you have to stay on top of everything, don't you?
I do, actually.
What does your daily schedule look like here?
Well, we start very early in the morning. It's really hot here in the Entre Rios province in Argentina. So we work from 6 to 10, and then we cut out for the midday, and we start at 3 until 6 or 7 p.m.
So that's a long day, basically. Every single day, 7 days of the week. You don't take a break. You can't, because you're dealing with nature, right?
Yes, we do. There's certain seasons which are busier than others. Right now we are planting, so we don't have weekends, we don't have holidays.
And what inspired you to become a farmer? Like, how did your journey lead you to this point?
Well, my old man have a farm. We actually have a farm in Tierra del Fuego in southern Patagonia. So my whole family has been farming for a while, and I did study agricultural economics in Iowa State. And I'm a big fan of farming and cows, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I can definitely feel your passion. Like when you're talking about it, when you were showing me around a little bit, I could definitely feel your love for nature and for animals coming through. But what would you say is the one common misconception that people have about farming these days?
Unfortunately, for some people, have very bad media, because they think that we pollute the environment and we don't take care of animals properly, and that's the complete opposite. I mean, we work here, we are the land, administrators, and we do it, and because we rely on the land. If we hurt the land, we won't have any revenues to work on. So We are the biggest land lovers ever.
So I've just learned something really interesting, Julio, and that is how to tell the age of a horse.
This is how you do it.
I have a curious horse behind you.
And you check out how long their teeth are. And if they're long and strong,
Yeah.
the horse is young.
Yes.
And if they're slim and skinny, the horse is old, basically.
And if the horse is curious, then what happens?
Let's see this age.
Okay, so we have a jealous horse, we have a young horse, and we've got
Napoleon.
Napoleon and
Luna.
Luna. Napoleon and Luna over here. And this one belongs to Julio's daughter, and this one?
To my boy, to Benjamin.
Oh, what lucky kids you have.
Check
Imagine
this out.
that. Okay.
This one is really young.
Super young horse. Look at that. Tiny little teeth. If it were older, they would have been longer, which is something that I just learned.
That's it.
Oh, this one's so soft. Imagine that though, being a child and just coming here to your weekend spot, having your horses here, driving around, kayaking, just having weekly adventures. I don't know, I just can't imagine a childhood like that. It's not something I've ever had living in a city, so I think it must be amazing. So that noisy tractor that just passed me separates the wheat seeds from everything else. About to go for lunch now, and it looks like the only way to get there is by boat, which I'm not complaining about because it's about 38 degrees today, so it'll be a nice little refreshing ride. And you'd think that at a farm, all that you would see is just animals and greenery and endless flat landscapes, but that is not the case, because we are going for lunch in a 200-year-old mansion that used to specialize in leather production. For some reason, no matter where I go, there's always a cuddly dog at my side. Okay, we were just given snacks, like little appetizers, and one of them is empanadas. Now, empanadas here in Buenos Aires usually come with beef because obviously their main local produce is beef, but these ones are with cheese, and oh my word, I've had about 3 of them so far. Best things ever. Look. Well, needless to say, that was super interesting and highly educational for me as well. But now I'm back in the city center of Buenos Aires, about to explore some more historical things. I'm actually getting asked a lot of questions on social media about the safety over here. As you can see, I am walking around alone with a camera in my hand, and I'm feeling okay for now. I'm not feeling threatened or anything, but I have heard some stories about people getting violent over here when they try to get your phone off you, your wallet off you, or any other valuables. So I've come here not wearing anything valuable at all. Like, even the handbags that I have are basically like grocery bags, or really cheap ones. Not wearing a watch, not wearing any jewelry, not wearing anything designer. So it's just a matter of sort of being aware and also being smart about it. Welcome to Plaza de Mayo, which is one of Buenos Aires' most iconic spots. It is a huge plaza, as you can see, with 2 very important buildings. One of them being the old government building, which was constructed in the 16th century, shortly after Argentina's first settlers came in. So there you have it. It is very cute and very tiny, but back then it was their pride and joy. And then when Argentina gained independence in 1810, they built a whole other building, which is now the president's house, and it is much more grand and obviously much more spectacular. And it was sort of a gesture to say, in your face, Spain, we are now independent and we will do something a lot better than that thing that you did over there. So I'm having to walk all across the big plaza now to show you guys the big government building, which is the president's house. You often have protests right in front of it to show and display people's unhappiness over the current government. I think there's one right now actually, so you will get the privilege of seeing that. Protests here are a daily thing. They happen every single day, and every day it is for a different reason, but mostly it is about the current government, which most people are not very pleased with, let's just put it that way. There is apparently a lot of corruption going on in Argentina. I mean, the inflation on its own is a different story. There's been a 50% inflation rate every year for the past 5-6 years, if not more. So the peso is currently a worthless local currency that people are finding very, very hard to use. I mean, even today I had like a huge wad of cash and I felt very rich until I realized all I could afford with it was a box of tissues. Anyway, here we are. Yep, definitely a protest going on, but I'm going to try to walk around it and get a nice view of the president's house, which is a beautiful dark pink color. Okay, are you ready for this? I just realized that I forgot to mention how we got here. Now, obviously during times of COVID, travel has become very complex and not always as straightforward as it used to be. If you are vaccinated, it's actually pretty easy now that Argentina has opened up the borders for the past 3 weeks or so. You just have to fill out a government form that's available on the government website. You have to show proof of your vaccination, and you have to do a PCR a day or two before you get here. It takes you about 7 minutes to get out of the airport when you land. So there really was no trouble there. Heading away from the protests now, and I'm about to go do a very interesting activity. I'm about to go see a house that was bought by a local a few dozen years ago, and the house was originally built in the 1840s. Now, when this local man bought the house, he realized that underneath there were a series of tunnels that were actually from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and they used to be drainage tunnels for when the area used to flood a lot. There used to be a lot of water. So I'm gonna go see those tunnels and also the remains of the house as it used to be in the mid-19th century. And if you've ever wondered what the most beautiful bookstore in the world looks like, now's your chance to find out. So this place was first opened in 1919, and the main purpose of it was a theater, which is why it looks the way it does. And then it was repurposed to a cinema, after which it was reopened up again as a bookstore. And National Geographic actually named it as one of the world's most beautiful bookstores, and it currently welcomes over 1 million tourists every year. I'm starting my day in San Telmo today, which is one of the oldest areas here in Buenos Aires, with history dating back to the 17th century when workers used to live here. Then the area became more desirable when a proper sewage system and proper electricity and running water was introduced here a bit later. The reason that San Telmo is known these days is mostly because of the Sunday market, which you can see behind me. I've been lucky enough to be able to come here on a Sunday, and this market is basically good for anything that you can possibly think of. If you want old clocks, old cameras, clothes, flasks, silverware, jewelry, literally anything that comes to your mind, you will find it here in the San Telmo market. The other thing about San Telmo is that it's still quite authentic in terms of a comparison between how it was back in the day and how it is now. So I'm curious to just walk around the streets a little bit and see what I can find. I think the beauty of San Telmo is all about it not being as manicured as some of the other areas in Buenos Aires. I even read this article about things like sushi places and pho places making an appearance in San Telmo because obviously the area has had to modernize recently, and the locals not being too pleased about that. It really just shows you how attached people are to the history and the origins of San Telmo, which I quite like. Unfortunately, it is time for me to end this Buenos Aires vlog, but thank you so much for sticking around. I have a feeling that this vlog is going to be long, but at the same time full of amazing experiences and maybe even fun facts that you guys haven't seen before in other Buenos Aires vlogs. The three final observations that I would like to make before leaving you guys is that number one, Buenos Aires is extremely welcoming. So all the locals here really appreciate you coming here and learning about their culture, their traditions, their language, their history, and they constantly show you that appreciation and they constantly want to help you. Number two is that the roads here can either be really trafficked, so it can take you like an hour or an hour and a half to get from one end of the street to the other end by car, or you can catch something called the green wave and whiz through the whole city in a matter of minutes. And the green wave is basically when the lights are timed perfectly so that if you respect the speed limit and you catch one green light, you will consequently catch all of them. And it's a great incentive to stay safe and respect the speed limit, but also it saves you so much time in traffic. And number three is that Buenos Aires is a very hard city to get lost in because it was one of the first ever planned cities in this whole continent, meaning that its construction is very grid-like, similar to Manhattan. And I've actually had the privilege of seeing the first ever map of Buenos Aires from the 16th century in one of the tours that I went on, so I'll show that to you right now. And you can even see that despite it being a primitive map, it still showcases perfectly the square-like manner in which the whole city has been laid out. So every block is exactly 100 meters, and when you walk through the city, you know exactly where you are at any given time. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. Please leave comments below, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. It's funny how only when I got to the dessert part of my meal here in Buenos Aires did I think it would actually be useful to do a video of it. But as it so happens, dessert looks like it was the best part. I'm in a very cute courtyard having lunch, but it looks like the two courses that I had before this were completely unnecessary because this is going to fill me up just fine. Okay, I will hide behind this for the rest of time now.